Use it. Within hours, his dad arrived with a legal pad and a quiet fire in his eyes. Together, they spread out documents across the dining table. "We're not just going to stop this," his dad said. "We're going to expose it." Ethan nodded. For the first time, he felt ready. With his father's help, Ethan began building a case. Organized, precise, undeniable. They uncovered board meeting minutes with suspicious edits, violations issued only to certain homeowners, and documents signed off without full board approval. Ethan started talking to neighbors, gently at first. What he found shocked him. Others had also been fined unfairly, silenced, or intimidated. Karen's pattern wasn't isolated. It was systemic. One neighbor handed Ethan a photocopy of a threatening letter. Another shared that Karen had pushed for foreclosure over lawn decorations. Ethan wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was uncovering a broken system, and now others were starting to join him. The momentum grew faster than Ethan expected. After sharing what he found with a few trusted neighbors, word began to spread. People started knocking on his door, some with documents, others with stories, all with frustration in their eyes. Ethan and his father created a shared file to collect everything. Emails, violation patterns, HOA budgets, and even photos of Karen selectively enforcing rules. A retired teacher offered to print flyers. A teenager offered to build a website. What began as a personal fight was now becoming a movement. The more people saw the truth, the less afraid they became. One elderly couple cried as they handed Ethan their paperwork. They chummersuid bad out beer they were in Moitchain fined for lensar upper wind chimes. "We thought we were alone," they whispered. Ethan shook his head gently. "You're not, and we're not done yet." Hope was no longer a flicker. It was catching fire. As the community's support for Ethan grew, Karen's reaction turned hostile. She began sending threatening letters, not just to Ethan, but to neighbors who spoke up. Some found anonymous warnings taped to their doors. Others received sudden violation notices for absurd reasons. Grass half an inch too long, curtains the wrong shade. But instead of backing down, the community grew closer. Ethan's kitchen became a war room. Maps, timelines, and copies of every fine ever issued were laid out like evidence in a trial. His father, calm as ever, helped organize everything into a legal case. Ethan knew Karen was trying to scare them into silence. But now, with truth on his side and his neighbors behind him, he wasn't going anywhere. This was bigger than him now. Ethan knew it was time to take the fight public. With the help of a neighbor's son who studied journalism, they produced a short, powerful video. It explained how simple $55 fine turned into a threat of foreclosure, and how Karen had abused her power for years. Within days, the video spread across social media, drawing attention from local news. A reporter reached out and scheduled an interview. When the segment aired, showing Ethan's research and stories from mistreated homeowners, the response was overwhelming. Karen's calm facade cracked. She stormed into the next HOA meeting, furious, trying to discredit Ethan's claims, but too many people had seen the truth. She shouted about lies and smear campaigns, but the room was no longer hers. It now belonged to the people she had once silenced. At the next HOA meeting, the room was packed. Neighbors who had never shown interest before now filled every seat. Ethan stood at the front, a folder of documents in hand, his father beside him. Karen tried to regain control, banging her gavel and demanding silence, but the crowd ignored her. Ethan stepped forward and calmly presented the evidence. Selective enforcement records, emails linking Karen to personal gain from HOA funds, and testimonies from over a dozen homeowners. Gasps filled the room as projected images showed Karen ignoring violations from her friends while punishing others for minor infractions. When Ethan revealed a financial report showing thousands of dollars unaccounted for, even Karen's former allies looked away. Her voice cracked as she tried to respond, but no one was listening anymore. Her reign was breaking. Truth had finally taken the microphone. After the meeting, everything changed. Karen resigned within 48 hours, citing stress and defamation, though no one seemed to buy it. A temporary board was formed, with Ethan unanimously voted in to help lead the transition. With his father's guidance, they launched a full audit of the HOA's finances and rewrote the bylaw system with clear, fair language. Neighbors who once lived in fear now gathered openly, offering ideas and support. Violations dropped. Conversations replaced threats. For the first time in years, the community felt like a home again. As Ethan stood on his porch, watching kids ride bikes and families wave across fences, he knew this wasn't just a victory over Karen. It was a reminder that fairness only exists when someone is brave enough to demand it. Months later, the neighborhood had transformed. Gone were the quiet tensions and fearful whispers. In their place were shared gardens, friendly gatherings, and open aufwing meetings where every voice mattered. Ethan often received quiet thank yous from neighbors he never expected, grateful for the courage he had shown. His father, now smiling more than ever, reminded him that justice often starts with one person daring to ask, why? As Ethan walked past Karen's old house, now owned by a kind young family, he felt no bitterness, only peace. What had begun with a $55 fine had become a movement that redefined a neighborhood. And as he stood under the evening sky, he realized the truth. Sometimes the strongest power doesn't come from rules, but from the people willing to stand against them. True strength doesn't come from power or titles. It comes from the courage to stand up when something is wrong. Ethan's story reminds us that injustice often hides behind rules, traditions, and systems that seem too big to challenge. A single $55 fine could have cost him his home if he had chosen silence over action. Instead, he turned fear into fuel, gathered facts, built alliances, and showed his neighbors that when one person dares to question unfairness, change becomes possible for everyone. The real heart of a community isn't found in strict regulations or polished appearances. It's built through fairness, respect, and the willingness to protect one another. Even when faced with intimidation and isolation, Ethan proved that honesty, persistence, and calm determination could dismantle even the most deeply rooted injustice. In the end, courage is contagious. One voice can awaken hundreds. One act of bravery can rebuild a community. Always remember, never underestimate the power of standing for what's right, even if you are standing alone at first.